Let me give you some pointers on how to get way more done in less time. Have you ever seen the movie Limitless? It's about a dude, he gets a pill, and if he takes the pill, his brain power gets multiplied, I don't know, 10-fold, 50-fold. He can finally use his whole brain, right? Guy takes the pill, and it's like the light goes on. It's like night and day. Suddenly, cleans his whole apartment. He writes this whole book or thesis. He finishes stuff he hasn't finished for years. He's a whole new dude, suddenly. It's amazing. And I won't spoil the rest of the movie for you. You have to see it for yourself. What stands out is what happens to him when he takes the limitless drug. Because that's the exact same thing that you can do for yourself in order to get way more work done, way faster, of way higher quality, and you don't even have to take drugs to do it. In fact, I would advise you not to take drugs because that sort of messes with your work schedule. So, don't do drugs, kids. Let's just get more work done. Here's a couple pointers. 1, there's a great book. I don't really recommend you read it because it's pretty dense and complicated. But the book is about flow, the flow state. There's this state you reach, we've all had it at one point, where there's no real thinking, there's just doing. Maybe you have it when you're writing, maybe you have it when you're drawing, maybe you have it while playing sports, and it feels great. You forget that time is even a thing. Maybe someone interrupts you, or there's a sound, and you're startled because you forgot all of the world around you. You were all focused on one thing and one thing only. That's the flow state. Ideally, you want to be in that state as much as possible. This will increase your productivity. It will also increase your happiness because the vast majority of people are never in that state. Everything about social media, everything in your life, all the devices you have, all the stuff that you're doing all day is specifically designed so you never get to that flow state. You never get to your maximum productivity state where things just go effortlessly and you get more done than you can ever imagine. So remember, that should be the goal. It should be your goal to forget the world around you, to be only focused on one thing and one thing only. And you'll notice the more time you spend in that state, the better you'll feel. Not only that, the more results you'll see, the more work you will get done, the better you will get at your craft. Concentrated effort is the currency of our century. It's more important than ever. If you look at a master craftsman creating something, take a carpenter, for example. It doesn't matter what he's making, but all of his attention, all of his focus, all of his mastery goes into that. And by doing that, he creates a masterpiece. That's the only way it's done. You're not going to create masterpieces by scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, or by being interrupted 67 times in an hour, or by doing 72 projects at the same time, having 11 tabs open on your browser. That's not the way. We all know instinctually the way is one thing: focus, attention. Like it says in John Wick, the bad guy explains to his son who John Wick is, and he describes him by saying John is a man of focus and commitment and sheer will. That's a very scary description if someone is coming after you. In the first Terminator movie, the protagonist is explaining the Terminator to Sarah Connor, and he says something like, it cannot be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse. It won't eat. It won't sleep. It will not stop until you are dead. Now, I don't recommend you become a Terminator. We don't have the technology yet. What I do recommend is that you take that mindset and focus on whatever project you have. Focus on whatever to-do list you have. You will not stop. You will not relent until it is done. Until you put in the reps that you should put in. Because that's the way mastery is achieved. That's the way your body is built. That's the way anything in the real world is built. Concentrated, focused effort. Sheer will. Now let's get a bit more practical. Because that's all conceptual. But how do you actually do that? I can get you fired up. I can get you motivated. Saying, yeah, I should do that. But how do you do that? Because, like I said, you instinctually know you should do this. But why don't you do it then? Couple things. I want you to focus on one thing at a time. In reality, this is the whole idea behind your attention, behind your mind, behind focus. one thing at a time, one task at a time. You've been told that multitasking is real. You can do multiple things at once, do a little bit of that, do a little bit of that, have some background noise going, follow the news in the background, talk to your coworker while you're doing your work. It's all BS. That's not real. There is a lot of science behind this, a lot of research that has gone into this, and we know unequivocally that multitasking isn't real. Focusing on one thing is real, just as an experiment. See, if you're looking at this on your phone, see how many apps you have open. If you're looking at this on a PC or a desktop or a tablet, look at how many tabs you have open, how many browser tabs. And I will bet you that there are multiple things trying to claw at your attention, hoping to get you to give them attention. Because everything in our current society is built that way. Everything is trying to get your eyeballs to focus on it, your attention, because it's a really valuable asset. One thing. You have your list. Doesn't matter if you have one item on your list, 6 items, 60 items, I don't care. You pick the one thing you're going to do right now. All of the rest fades into the background. That's unimportant right now, because you can't do those things anyway. So why worry about them? Why have tabs open? Why have alerts open? Why would you ever even look at it? One thing. You're going to do prospecting? Do prospecting. You're going to work out? Work out. You're going to do research? Research. Single-minded focus, sheer will. I believe it was Baltasar Gracian who said, "Time and I against any other two." It's a great quote. He probably should have said, "Focused attention and effort over time and I against any other two." But that doesn't really roll off the tongue. So time and I against any other two is better. But what he meant was focusing on whatever obstacle there is, whatever issue there is, for a prolonged amount of time will ensure you destroy the obstacle in your way. And it's true. Focused, concentrated attention. One thing at a time. Which leads me to point number 2. Eliminate distractions. Now here's where you can take a page out of the Terminator book. He sort of showed you how to do it. Distractions are your enemy. They are evil. This thing, your phone, desktop notifications, people around you, they're all distractions. You're trying to get one thing done. Imagine being a glass blower, right? Someone that makes beautiful glass pieces. And they're working with the piping hot material. It's pretty dangerous. If something goes wrong, the burn is pretty bad, I imagine. Gotta be pretty hot. If you would follow that guy around while he was doing his work, he's not, blowing the glass, having the phone against his head, telling someone to get him a latte, and people going on in the background asking for his attention. None of that is happening. He's focusing on his craft. There's only one thing in the world for him, and that's whatever he's working on right now. Right now. Which is the only time you have. Whatever time already passed, nothing you can do about it. And whatever is coming, well, that's in the future. Right now is the only thing you have. If you're in the now, while you're doing your work, you will do your best work. And you should be ruthless about eliminating distractions. There's also a lot of science about this where we know that if you get distracted, let's say you're writing something, I don't know, you're writing something, you're in the moment, and now you get distracted. Your phone rings, someone asks you if you want to get lunch, a desktop notification pops up saying, "Hey, pay attention to me," and you focus on it. We know that it takes your brain a while to get back into the flow, into whatever you were doing beforehand. As human beings, we're not good at switching between tasks. It takes a lot of brain power, and it takes away our concentration. It keeps you on the surface, while you want to be much deeper, where you can really get the work done. Work doesn't get done here, it gets done here. But it takes you a while to sink in there. And every time something distracts you, it goes back up. And now it takes you a while again to get back in there. And plenty of people are distracted so many times in a day that they never even get there. I've experienced this myself when I had a lot of staff. I was the boss, so people kept interrupting me all the time. I kept a log once, just for 2 hours. Got interrupted like 26 times or something. There's no way you can get work done when people keep interrupting you. So, Keep interruptions to a minimum. The phone goes away. It goes into another room. There's no sound. It just goes away. So the phone goes away. Any desktop notification goes away as well. Any other tabs that are open in your browser, they go away as well. One thing, only that. No distractions. In fact, let me give you a weird tip. If you're in a noisy environment, here's what I did. It's a bit weird, but stay with me. These days, when I have to focus in a noisy environment, I have this fancy $200 noise cancelling headphone, and it's great. Works just fine. People think you're listening to music, they leave you alone. In the old days, I had this thing. It works just fine. It's one of those things that construction workers use at construction sites. Just put it over your head and the outside world disappears. It's awesome. Now you're not exactly inconspicuous. You're not going to blend in. You are probably going to stand out. And you're not looking at your, Sunday best. And that's absolutely fine. People will leave you alone. Maybe they think you're nuts. Maybe they won't. But it doesn't really matter. They know that you don't want to be disturbed. I started doing this when I had a lot of staff. And they knew when Arno was wearing the green thing, don't disturb him. Leave him alone. But what do you do if people do keep bothering you? Because this happened. Like, some people were really persistent. I took up the thing and I said, is this an emergency? And usually they had the good graces to say, they say, I can only deal with emergencies right now. I really have to finish this thing. If it's not like life or death, if there's not like a fast moving fire going on, let's keep it until 6 p.m., 4 p.m., 3 p.m., whatever. Doesn't matter. You have some time in your calendar to deal with non-urgent stuff. Let's tackle it all in one go. All right? I've never had anyone say, no, it's not all right. Because it's a very normal thing to ask. It's not a nasty thing to say. Like, I really need to finish this thing. Is it okay if we cover this later? And usually it was something stupid. Like, hey, which kind of coffee do I need to order? Something that doesn't matter at all. Especially compared to whatever you want to get done. So, limit distractions extremely. Be very hardcore about that. Super, super important. Phone goes away. Noise cancelling thing goes on if necessary. All the tabs get closed. You're focused on one thing and one thing only. Now, I assume you have multiple things to do in a day. I sure do. Lots of things on my to-do list. What I do is I make my to-do list. I number them from 1 to whatever, usually around 10 to 15 items. And I get a sense of how much time I need. I got this kitchen timer. And what I do is I set it for every task. So let's say I have 30 minutes for emails and DMs. I set my kitchen timer because my phone is away, remember? It's gone. Because I know myself. Like, if it's there, you're going to be seduced by it. It might grasp your attention anyway. And before you know, you start scrolling stupid stuff and your time is slipping away. Got a kitchen timer. Kitchen timers are cheap. Couple dollars. You have a kitchen timer. Put it on your desk. All right, I have 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes for correspondence. That's how it's in my calendar. Correspondence. DMs, email, WhatsApp, Telegram. Check all of that stuff. And when the kitchen timer goes, you hit it, check your to-do list. Here's what's important. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of answering an email or if you're not done with the task. You just go on with the next one. That's the way I do it. And you'll get better at sensing how much time you need for certain tasks. And that's fine. You can always get back to it. Like, I have some slack in my calendar usually. And if anything really urgent isn't finished, I can do it in a couple hours anyway. But you go on to the next task, which is the way you train your mind to get better at estimating how much time things cost. You go on to the next task and set your kitchen timer again, and it's go time. And for me, personally, I prefer doing at least 45 minutes up to 120 minutes for stuff that needs my attention. So that's actually important, where I need to not be here, like answering emails and DMs, that's this kind of work. But if I have to be here, if I have to be in the deep, then I prefer 45 to 120 minutes. Sometimes even longer. Depends on how drains your attention is. Kitchen timer goes next.